Welcome back to Washington Watch. Again, we're broadcasting today from the International Religious Freedom Summit here in Washington, D.C. We'll be talking more about that a little bit later. We had a panel discussion today that I moderated about the rising authoritarianism and intolerance toward Christianity in the West. We're not talking about North Korea. We're not talking about Nigeria. We're talking about Western governments, including the United States. So that's coming up a little bit later. You don't want to miss that. But earlier today, the U.S. Supreme Court sent 3 abortion-related cases back to the lower courts to be reevaluated in light of last week's ruling in the Dobbs case that overturned the 1973 Roe decision and the 1992 Casey decision. The cases had involved laws from Arizona, Arkansas, and Indiana that restricted abortion, which the lower courts had blocked based on Roe and Casey. Now, as the dominoes continue to fall following the Dobbs ruling, the left is trying to do everything they can to expand abortion access. They're also saying they're not going to enforce the law at certain levels of government. So what are we to make of this, and what is the future? Here to discuss this is Erin Hawley. She is the senior counsel to the appellate team at Alliance Defending Freedom, who helped the state of Mississippi draft their briefs in their arguments in the Dobbs case. Erin, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, let me get your reaction first. What do you make of the left's recent accusations against the Supreme Court? I didn't go into that in the intro. You know, AOC and others out there saying, look, even the president today saying, look, we've got to eliminate the filibuster. We've had some saying we've got to expand the court, that this is delegitimized the court. How do you respond to that?
I think that's just outrageous. What the Supreme Court did in Dobbs was to set the court back on the right path. As Justice Alito's opinion in Dobbs said, Roe versus Wade was a raw exercise of judicial power. And the opinion there really makes the case that because the Constitution nowhere in its text, structure, or history does it contain a right to an abortion, and in that instance, then the court's job is at an end. Its only job is to interpret the Constitution, and because there's no right to an abortion, it needs to go back to the states and the people. And so this ruling is very democracy reinforcing, and the Supreme Court really did what it had to do in that case in overruling Roe versus Wade.
Again, to underscore what we just said, and this, I think, is seen in the court sending these cases back to the states, is that the court did not eliminate abortion. They put it back into the hands of elected representatives, both at the state level. It doesn't mean the federal government can't deal with it as well, but it's back into the hands of elected representatives. But in light of this, Erin, we see the administration saying they're going to do certain things. They're trying to see if they can put up abortion clinics on federal lands. They're going to work to make sure they can pay for women to travel out of state to get an abortion. But then you have prosecutors, local prosecutors in red states. In fact, I think you have more than 80 prosecutors have already vowed not to enforce the law. What are we looking at going forward?
So I think it's very much going to be a state-by-state approach. And it's for the prosecutors, if they are in a state in which a majority of the people have decided that abortion should be illegal in certain circumstances, then their job is to uphold that law. If not, I think a number of states give authority to the Attorney General or to other state actors to look into those violations of the state's law. But absolutely, our local law enforcement officers need to protect everyone, including unborn children. And then I think we'll see some really liberal states that continue to do things like allow abortion up until the very moment before birth. And I think that's one thing that's really gotten lost in this is we hear a lot about different things that red states might be doing. But if you look at blue states in this country, they have more liberal abortion policies than almost any nation in the world. They are on par with North Korea and China, which we are only one of 6 countries that allows abortion up until birth. And so I think that's something that we as believers and we as pro-life advocates really need to work on the hearts and minds of people to encourage them to protect life.
I mean, the issue of abortion is far from being resolved, but I do think this puts us on a path that we can achieve some resolution where for the last 49 years with the court taking it and taking it out of the hands of the people's representatives, there was no chance. In fact, it's become more of a political issue as a result. But I think you're right. I think you're going to have states that are going to embrace abortion, but I think some people will walk away from those states. I think pro-life states are going to become more pro-life. I think people will vote with their feet when it comes to the policies of the states. You were a part of the team that prepared for, argued this case, drafting the briefs. Your reaction when you got word, I know that it was the suspense was a little bit lifted by the leaked document, but even at that point, what did you think?
I don't know that it is sunk in yet. There have been so many people who have worked for decades. They've marched and they've planned and they've prayed. They've volunteered at local pregnancy care centers. And this has just been the work of generations to actually be living today in a post-Roe world where babies are safer today than they were a week ago. And that's just really astounding. So I think I just a huge eminent sense of gratitude and just thankful that the Supreme Court sort of adhered to its principles and looked to the constitutional text and overruled Roe.
It was refreshing that they did, in fact, return to the Constitution. Very quickly, I've got 30 seconds left. What do you think is going to be the next aspect of abortion that's going to make its way to the courts that'll be litigated?
There's probably going to be a lot. There's, of course, the federal administration, I think, is going to try various sort of ideas to implement abortion nationwide, whether it's through the FDA or whether it's through veterans hospitals. So I think you'll see some administrative action by the Biden administration. But the court, again, is going to have to look at congressional text. They'll have to find that Congress clearly authorized these sorts of actions, federal actions on abortion, and that's just not true of any of these statutes. So, but I think that's the new frontier.
Yeah, well, the battle continues. Erin Hawley, I want to thank you for joining us and a job well done.
Thanks so much.